Hey, everybody. Welcome to this installment of The Agent is In, where we talk about CFEngine and configuration management and such. Today, Nick Anderson is going to present some things. We also have a couple other people from the CFEngine team. Would you like to announce yourselves?
Cody.
Hey, I'm Herman. Good thing we got the order right. I'm Herman, I'm the product manager. And Cody?
Yeah, I'm Cody, and I'm the director of community. I'm a non-technical person here, so it's good to be here.
Well, I'm Nick, and today I'm going to talk about Autorun and extending Autorun. But first, I think since the last time we had an episode, we released 3.18.2, 3.15.6, and 3.20, which is what we covered last time before we released that. So if you haven't tried those out, go grab the new releases. Anything else that we need to talk about before we get going? No?
No,
All right.
so.
All right, well, so today the topic is Autorun. Specifically, I'll be toward the end. I'm gonna probably do some extension live because that's fun. So I guess maybe talk about what Autorun is to begin with. So Autorun is a feature of the master files policy framework, and it allows you to easily integrate policy into the stock policy set. So you can enable the feature by defining the services Autorun class, and then any of the .cf suffixed files that are in services Autorun get automatically picked up and added to inputs. And then any bundles that you have that are tagged Autorun will get run in lexical order. So it's very convenient to just drop a file in and then have things load and run. You can separate those things as well. So there are separate classes for just turning on auto running of bundles that are tagged with Autorun, or just turning on Autorun inputs so that it'll, I don't know exactly what class that is. I have some notes over here. Yeah, services Autorun inputs to turn on auto loading of inputs. So anyway, let's take a look. Let's see here, my console. So let's take a look at what it's like to enable Autorun. Let's make a new policy file here. Agents. So in order to tag a bundle for Autorun, you do it by setting a meta promise tags that's a list that contains Autorun. And this thing, print this out. All right, so we've got a policy file here. I don't have syntax highlighting on here. I'm just editing in a VM, so it's a little bit wonky for me. So I'm going to use CFBS here to add my policy. It is adding Autorun as a dependency. This is the default behavior. And then it's wanting to ask me about the commit message. I'm just going to take the defaults here. So if we look at this, now we see that we have master files, we have the Autorun module, and then we've got our local my policy. And if we look at the JSON file, we can see that this is dependent on Autorun, and that when this project is built, this my policy file is going to be copied into that services Autorun directory. So build that and install it. an update. So now when I run the policy, we get our hello world from that file in inputs. So
And Nick, I noticed that there was an Autorun module that got added.
yeah,
And that what is, you're gonna talk about that maybe? Like show us
Sure.
what.
so let's look at Autorun. So Autorun was added here, and if we look at it, there we go. The only thing that Autorun does is it merges the JSON that is in the Autorun module into def.json. So we'll go ahead and look at the built result to see that in, we have JQ here, yeah. So we'll see that services Autorun, the class is set. If there's a class that matches any, that's always defined. So it's going to be enabled everywhere. And that's what that Autorun, that's the only thing that Autorun module did.
Cool.
So if we were to CFBS status, CFBS remove Autorun, is it going to let me do that? Do it. All right, so now I have my policy that is tagged for Autorun, and it's in the Autorun directory, but I have removed the thing that it was dependent on. So if I build, install, update the policy, and run, we don't get that message that that file wasn't run. And if I define services Autorun, then we do get it again. So that's what that module does.
Cool.
All right, so there are some other features of Autorun. So let's see here. Let's do master files, services Autorun. So there's some documentation that's in the directory about services Autorun, the configuration that you can do. We can look in here. So here's the service Autorun inputs class that we talked about for enabling those things separately. And service Autorun bundles, if you want to explicitly define your inputs and then have them run in that automatic lexical order. There's also this variable def.mpf extra Autorun inputs. And so this, you can define this list of additional directories where you've got policies that you want to get slurped up into inputs automatically, all the CF files that are in there. And then same behavior applies. If they're tagged with Autorun, they'll be part of that group that gets run in lexical order. So let's see what happens if we do this. So I'm just gonna go into master files and start editing this directly. So what happens if I do? I didn't try this at all, so this could go down in flames. Move services Autorun, my policy, Etsy, CFEngine, extra. Let's see here. Get the name of this variable. Oh, I'm scrolling right past it. Copy that. Yes, extra Autorun inputs. So what I'm doing now is I move that example just like completely outside of master files. I put it in Etsy, and then I'm going to add that path to Autorun so that it'll still pick up that same policy file. So let's go up to here. Oops. Do I not have def.json? Did I not deploy? I installed.
I think you might have deployed the version where you removed the Autorun module.
Oh, I totally did. Yes, thanks. Whoops. CFS install locally. Okay. Var CFEngine master files, and let's do that again. Move services, Autorun, my policy to Etsy, CFEngine extra my policy. Yes. And now we can edit this. So much harder to read without syntax high. Vars. And then we did extra Autorun inputs, and this is a list. So I'm going to do Etsy, CFEngine. What do I call it? Extra? Yeah, Etsy CFEngine extra. Okay. So we'll add that there. That looks right. Make sure its syntax is valid. All right, that's good. Okay, so now I've defined that. I've moved that policy out of master files, so it's not with the main policy set. And we're just gonna load up these. Yeah, agent. Let's see. Let's do this. Update the policy. So I expect to see that same thing, and it did. And we can see that it came from outside of master files. So that's great. It gives you a lot of flexibility with using this feature, but sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes you might have some bespoke rules to your infrastructure that you want to implement in policy. So, for example, maybe you want to load policy files, or find policy files that are in deep directories instead of just in that top level Autorun directory or in one of these explicitly listed directories. Maybe you want to descend into directories, and maybe you only want to add policy files that are that have enabled in the path, or that you have a correlating class for that some feature is being turned on. So you can only load policies, if you've got a class indicating that you want to load those policies. So that can help minimize your parse time, and very large infrastructures, all those things really count. But that's not the kind of feature that features that are provided by the stock Autorun. So I thought that we would take a look at what it would take to implement your own Autorun. So to define your own Autorun, you just need a few things. You'll need some policy files with bundles that you want to run and load those policy files. You'll need a bundle to find those policy files, and you'll need a bundle to run the bundles that you want to run. And then the last thing that you're going to need then is the configuration to wire that custom policy in. I do not recommend that you try to write custom Autorun extensions and then have that policy itself be auto-run by the Autorun system. A little too much meta in the meta. It's just, in my experience, it's better to be explicit about this feature that you're going to develop that's custom for yourself. So let's see here. Policy files with bundles that we want found. That's kind of the first thing that we need to do. So I do have a little snippet for this. So I'm going to run this. So this just made a tree of some custom policy files inside of services. Find services. So you can see it made this directory, my policies, 1.cf, 2.cf, 3.cf, more with an enabled subdirectory, and 4.cf. And of course, if we do CFEngine update.cf, CFEngine -k, we still just get the one hello world. I guess we could take a look and see what these are like. This is what each of the bundles look like, other than they're named for the file name that you see. So they are tagged with my Autorun instead of Autorun, and then they'll just report their bundle name. So now we've got some policy files. That's great. I guess the next thing we need to do is write some policy to find those policy files. So what could go wrong? Discover and run. What could go wrong, right? Let's slide code it. Bundle agent. Discover policies. Okay. Without syntax highlighting. Oh, I didn't even consider that ahead of time. That was a bad choice. Okay. This bundle needs to find, we're going to need some bars. And let's give it a search. And I'm thinking that we can use find files. Oh my gosh, I don't even have my reference for functions there. Okay, so this takes just globs, if I recall correctly. I'm sorry, you'll have to excuse me while I pull up some docs. Better to read them than to be wrong. Functions. Oh, I can pull this over here so you guys could see where the docs for this stuff is. Functions and what I say, find files. Let's look at that. All right, so it takes n globs. Star matches any file name or any directory at one level. And bind them together to match multiple levels. Brace expansion is not supported. All right, that's fine. So let's we can just leave that there and pull this down. Okay, so search. Let's find from this promise file name. So this directory, or promise dir name perhaps. Let's find everything here. Some directories like that. That looks right. Weird without syntax highlighting. Okay, and then we'll do search. And then let's see here. Bundle agent discovery. So let's do bundle agent main. So what I'm doing here is I just want to be able to call this file directly and see what it finds as part of my development process. So I'm going to do discover policies. Looks right to me. All right. KF discover, and I already forgot the name of the bundle. Okay, grab this. CFEngine KF discover and run. Oh, I don't need to have the bundle name because I put the main name.
Hey, man, main. You
Yeah.
got it.
Show value ated bars equals this bundle. All right. So what we see here is that the variable default discover policies.bound now has all of these files, which are the files that we wanted it to find. So that part's working. Great. Now we need a bundle to run policies. How about this? Run bundles tagged my Autorun. I know Herman is sitting over there thinking that Nick has the best names. Always the best names.
I'm impressed by your mix of camel case and not camel case. But I understand it. I see it.
I guess the point there is that, yeah, you should have a style guide. You should follow it, and you can have camel case or whatever you want.
Yeah.
There
For
were some old versions of CFEngine where you couldn't have variables that started with numbers. Just fun factoid.
Oh,
Do as I say, not as I do.
Thank you.
there you go.
All right. So the next thing that we need to do here, okay, we find the bundles. After we find the bundles, we need to load them to inputs. So we can use for that.
You mean find the
Body.
files?
Huh?
You mean find the files, right?
Oh no, I already found the files here.
Yeah, but you need to add them to inputs.
Right. I need to add them to inputs. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to use body file control to load these found inputs. So inputs, and that's going to be discover, DISCOV, discover policies dot found. And this is a list. So I want to do this. Oh, so hard. Okay, syntax. That looks right. Very different without syntax highlighting. Okay, so I'm going to add them to inputs, and now we need to find the bundles from those. So let's do some bars here, and we want bundles B, which is a list that we're going to run, and it's going to be bundles matching any name tagged with my Autorun. And that looks right to me. All right, let's check it, shall we? Let's write this, background it. Let's run this, show, discover policies. What did I call that other one? Come back here. So discover policies, and then let's look at run bundles tag my Autorun. Craig, I saw you move. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you corrected it.
Okay.
I was really worried there.
Really worried. Okay, so that looks right. I appreciate the fly check.
The other camel
Personal
case
life
where
check.
you lowercase the first letter.
Yes, the other one. I've also been using some Hungarian notation recently, so just to keep it fresh.
Right.
Okay, so let's do this again. Discover policies, and well, yeah, we don't even need to limit this scope. Well, I guess we do. There's a whole bunch of sys bars in there that, okay, so let's do this again. Oops. Discover and run. What do I call this? Run bundles tag auto matching. All right, get out of here. So let's do this again, and then let's look at those. Good. So we found a bundle in the default namespace named 4, a bundle in the default namespace named 2, 3, and 1. Great. Okay. So that's working. But this is a little bit non-deterministic at this point. So probably you're going to want to sort this lexically. I think that's the reason. Sort. Sort takes a list and then the mode, and lex is one of the modes for lexical. Great. So now if we look at this, C, E, F, G, H. I'm not very good at.
You should probably prefix all those with the numeric digits. Just kidding.
Right. Well, yeah, good. All right. So sort that lexically. And then after we have found those bundles, the next thing that we want to do is we want to run them. I don't need 2 expansions here, just 1. So it'll iterate over that list and run each bundle. So note,
Add an S to method. Methods.
method, thank you.
Yeah.
Note, these bundles must not take parameters. So you're just calling them directly. You can use, I mean, we can use this other, right? We can use this other syntax we want to. Use bundle B, right? We could use that if we want, but either way, there's no way to syntactically feed any parameters to it. So they have to be parameterless in order to do this kind of thing. Okay, so there's that. So what happens if we do, I'm going to take K out of here. All right, look at that. It ran in 4, in 1, in 3, in 2. QRST. Yeah, it's in alphabetical order with me. Okay. So that's great. But what happens if we run it again? We didn't get the reports. Why didn't we get the reports? Because locking. That's fine. We're going to leave it there for now. Potentially, you might want to add action immediate here. So that your top level auto run bundles actually get entered each time the agent run happens. And then within those bundles, the locks will apply and they won't run themselves. But I have seen this surprise some people before, and the default auto run does run the auto run bundles immediate. So locking doesn't apply, at least at the top level of those. So just a thought. Okay, so this is working, I think. What's the next thing we need to do here? We need to load this into the policy that we've got. So let's go back to here. And let's do inputs. And it's going to be services, my policies, discover. Is that what I called it?
Sounds about right. Discover.
Okay, discover run FCF. So that's added to inputs. And then for variables, it's, look here. Let's go big and to the top. Let's go to reference, master files, policy framework, services, auto run. That's not what I want. I don't want this documentation. I want these. Not this one. Not those. Here we go. Control, common, bundle, sequence, classification. So this is instrumented in the master files policy framework so that you can run some bundles before the standard auto run policies. So we want our bundle that is doing the finding to run early. And so this is like the earliest easy place to hook in. So we're going to grab that, put that here, and then discover policies, I think is what I called it. And then we also want to run our bundles. So we could do that also very early during classification, depending on what you're using your auto run stuff for. But here I'm going to have these my auto run policies run toward the end of the bundle sequence. So it'll be discover them, run the standard auto run stuff if you've got that turned on, and then run main and hook off from there, and then just run whatever I called that, services, Autorun, services, my policies, discover what I call that. Run bundles, tag my Autorun. All right, so let's go back to here and kill that. Okay, that looks right except for this. It's valid, great. Let's run the update. We'll run this without locks. Hello world from outside. And then all of our others. So that's great. And what we've got here is basically just like Autorun with a different tag that descends into directories, right? So makes it interesting. Let me just go through here, right? So what if I wanted to only load policy from directories that are named enabled, right? Okay, so let's go into services, my policies. Let's get this. All right, so if we want to only load policies that are in a directory named enabled, we can tweak this discovery stuff a bit. So, I mean, one way to do this, I think, would be filter. Reference functions. Filter. So filter takes the filter, which is anchored regular expression. Then it takes the list, then whether or not the filter is a regular expression, whether or not you want to invert the results, and then the max number of elements that you want to return. So I'm going to grab that, and then let's come into here and let's do, fix that there for reference. All right, so let's filter this find files result with I think that looks
That makes
okay.
sense.
Okay. And then we've got our list, and yes, this is going to be a regex. And no, we don't want to invert it. And we want to take as many results as CFEngine can count to.
And then remove the quote before find files.
Yes, thank you. Such a good syntax checker. Okay, yeah, that looks right. Okay, so let's save this. On the update. Oh, something there didn't work. Let's look at this again. Filter enabled. Let's try this. There we go, in 4. And if we do find here, we'll see that 4 is indeed in this enable directory. Okay. See, I had another question or another random idea. Okay, so what if you had a class? This is another common one, right? So you do your classification up front, and then you're like, okay, well, this host is part of, is going to have these services. So we have these classes defined. So since we have these classes defined, let's load the policies that are related to those classes. So we can tweak this a little bit differently if we want to, instead of use the directory name, right? Like instead of enabled, other fun things you could do here, you could load a policy file that is, I don't know, specific to the version of CFEngine or the platform that you're running on or something like that. But let's take this and do for classes. So let's just get rid of this. Go back to what we had. And then let's do classic array, maybe. So let's do found for found. So we're just going to use that list of found files to build up a classic array of the files. But we're going to use this iteration as an opportunity to apply some different rules to this. So I want to know if there is a class for the, let's do a class. So whatever directory these policy files are in, if there is a class named for the directory suffixed with enabled. Okay, so we need to extract the last part of the path, last node on base name of found, right? No, not base name, dir name. Dir name on found. And last node needs to know, sorry, I'm not that good. All right, so last node takes a string, that's going to be the path, and then the separator, and dir name. Dir name takes the path, and it'll spit back the directory name. Okay, so we'll say dir name, found, close dir name, and then we're going to, I'm on the Unix system, so I'll use a // could use const.dir maybe. Okay, so we're going to do that, and then we're going to do if with enabled. Okay, and then we'll do found get indices f. Make sense here? Okay. So now when we run this, like nothing's going to work, right? Just the one that's outside of master of the pulse inputs to begin with. Right? So just hello world. Right. But if we were to define to enabled, we load and run that policy file as well. And we can do show evaluated vars equal discover, COV, discover policies. And we can look and see, indeed, discover policies, right, is filtered down and it only has the 2F in there. So, great, that's working. That's it. That's all. That's the whole thing.
Cool.
That's it. That
So now, Nick, if we think about like a more real world example, the two, it could be some cleanup policy or something,
Mhm.
and you could set the to enabled class from CMDB in Mission Portal, right?
Right.
So you
Yeah.
could
let's-
enable this directory of policy for one host temporarily from Mission Portal.
Mhm.
clean up. In cleanup, right? So we'll do that now. CFEngine K update this. Update that CFEngine K. Define cleanup.
Cleanup enable, yeah.
Cleanup enabled. Let's just look and see if this works. It should. In cleanup. All right, we've got a better name now. And then if we get out of here, where is this? Let's see here. Get out of here. And get into this hub. Don't show me this again. Okay, great. Okay, so now if we come down into, let's find our hub. We can come here and add the class default clean up enabled. And then we can tag this. We can do inventory and attribute. The attribute name equals I probably spelled it right. Those weren't good.
Enfeeblement.
That's your own word, enablement.
It's
Good job.
all right. So
You're
we're
extending the English language.
right. So I trigger this agent run. Collect the reports on that. I mean, I guess let's see if do I have it in here? It probably needs another run. We'll see. Yeah. All right. So let's get out of here. Well, we got to do this one more time. Oh, it's still doing its thing. Report received. Come on. And then show policy enablement class. Cleanup enabled. Good. So that class is being defined. And if we come here, if we look at previous, we only got the hello world from example. I guess it hasn't run in the background since we
Try running it. No, just like run agent, but without defining the cleanup enable class, right?
yeah. So we get the cleanup, and then if we wait for execd to do its run. Oh, unresolved variable. Discover policies found in input. I'm glad we checked that. This is because, let's see here, services, my policies, discover and run. Okay, so issue there is we were using a non-agent component. We were using execd, and execd isn't able to run agent bundles, which is what this discover policies is, right? So in this case, these policies that I'm loading, none of the other components are going to use these. Execd won't use the stuff here other than to run CFEngine, which will use them. Serverd won't use it, monitord won't use it. So what we need to do is we need to protect this so that other components don't end up with an undefined variable. So we can do, we have a couple of options here. We can do this, I think. So we can use, so each component has a class, each component that reads policy has a class that is defined when that component is the one executing the policy. So using that component class for agent to protect the definition of inputs, since that is in an agent bundle. Let's see if that helps us out. Okay, and now CFEngine dash okie dokie.
What does okie dokie mean?
Run once without locks and in form mode. And then it's just the rest of it to spell the same thing to make it fun. But no error, right? So that's the important thing. So that's another good thing to have in your bag, as far as if you're writing lots of agent policies that aren't used by other components, you can protect those components from loading those policy files and parsing them and wasting any time on that when they're completely irrelevant for them.
And that's because you have that body file, which is just for everybody, for all the different components.
Right. Yeah, all components are going to read this body file control, but only the agent is going to process this inputs list.
Right.
You know, another way that we could approach this would be to make this a common bundle. So all components will leverage it. So let's try this. Should get no errors, but execd did parse and deal with all those files. So that's a good option if the policies that you're loading are used by other components, right? So in a common bundle there, maybe, you know, maybe those things are defining measurements promises, or maybe those things are defining common bundles where paths are stored that can be used for both serverd access rules and agent file copies, referencing like that same variable. And if you're doing that sort of thing, then you could come down in here and, you know, if you find out that that's what you want, you could do this, right? You could do the same thing, but so that we don't get that error. Sorry, just a second. So that we don't get that error, not agent.
Right, and then you might have something that
we need to make sure that there's an empty list. Otherwise, we're going to get that error of this unresolved thing. So let's make sure that that is indeed the case.
the measurements you were talking about, that's CF monitor D.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So there you go. No error again, but move to a common bundle. And you know, if we think about that just a little bit more, if you want to take that just a little bit farther, right? In your discover bundles here, you could use different restrictions for different components.
Mm-hmm.
So you could maybe, you know, if you have directories and then you put policies that are, you could use your directory structure to say, okay, well, monitord should definitely load up these bundles that have promises for monitord, and serverd should load these that are server specific, and all components should load the common ones, right? So you can have that fine-grained control. Just gotta build it up. that was all of the random ideas that I had as far as like what things you might want to do with some custom auto run policy.
Cool.
What do you think? Yeah,
Good.
I'm just curious here though. What happens? Let's blow it up, right? What happens if we take this up?
Are you gonna make it auto run?
Yeah, what happens if we make it auto run? I'm not certain that it's really gonna work, right? So let's go to auto run and then so we're gonna search from this directory up a directory, my policies, down a directory. And this one needs to be tagged for auto run. And I guess, right? Actually, let's just auto run the one. Yeah, let's see what happens here. So I tag this with auto run. It's in the right directory. And then I want to get it out of here and get it out of here. But I'm going to leave this bit to pick to run those bundles. It still works, but don't do that. Don't do that. Don't build your own auto run policy and then auto run it like that. But you notice the order changed. That's because it did the auto run. Why did that order change? In cleanup, that didn't happen until the end of the bundle sequence. Oh yeah, this one happened first. Right, that's exactly what happened. Auto run policies happened first. Sorry, ignore me. Anyway,
Cool.
that is what I have. So go forth and build your own auto run.